Welcome to a short presentation on the writing process. My name is Sharif Aguess. I'm the director of the Student Success Center, and I'm also an associate professor of English, and this is English 3050, How to Tutor Writing, Fall 2014. So understanding well how we get to good writing will help you guide the students you'll be tutoring, and it will also help you to honestly assess your own writing process to see what's working for you and where you might improve. So let's begin with how you revise. Writers revise their work in a variety of different ways, and I'm going to show you two of the most common ways. The first one is modeled by Gloria Anzaldúa, and she says, "Nothing happens in the real world unless it first happens in our heads." And her writing process is to think deeply about her subject matter before she ever puts pen to paper or approaches her keyboard. So all of the development and organizing of her subject matter happens in her head, and then it comes out pretty organized when she starts to write. That's a pretty expert way to do things. But we have writers like Robert Louis Stevenson, who begins by writing first. So he says, "When I say writing, oh, believe me, it is rewriting I have chiefly in mind." So his process is to start writing, and that's where he gets his ideas, and then he works on refining them as he writes. He's a lot like Michelangelo, the sculptor, who believed that there was already a sculpture existing in the stone, and his process of chipping away at that helps the sculpture to emerge. So that's the difference between expert and novice writers. Novice writers believe they have to begin with a great idea or else it's all doomed. And then they get easily frustrated because their brilliant idea just doesn't come out perfect like they want it. So our job is to help writers to understand that the transfer of ideas between your brain and the screen, or your brain and print, is recursive. In other words, it's a spiraling process that moves back and forth. So we need to help students be patient with themselves as they work on this process so they can build their academic stamina. So the rationale for teaching writing as a process is that the ability to revise is actually a life skill. If you can re-see problems and situations, it helps you to gain clarity so you can make good choices and changes in your writing and in your life. The clearer you are, the better you'll be understood. So if we look at this first graphic and we pay attention to the incubation part, this is a really important part of the writing process that you can help students with. That's the part where you put the paper away and you don't think about it for a while, so that when you come back to it, you have a refreshed perspective and can more easily see where revisions need to happen. In the circular graphic, the part about getting feedback and revision is another crucial step in the process. The most famous writers you can think of know the value of getting feedback from empathetic peers and from experts, because they all know we get too close to our writing. We read it over and over and can no longer see the gaps in the information or the story. It's like we know what's in our heads, but that knowledge doesn't always make it to the page, and we need another set of eyes to see what's missing. Good writing takes time and a good deal of trial and error. It's a very natural process, and I find it fascinating that the more science finds out about how we learn, the more those patterns of thinking and learning look like patterns in the natural world, which is why I'm using this galaxy picture. Our thoughts tend to swirl in our heads, and getting them down in print can seem chaotic, but with patience and consistent practice, we can actually find the process highly enjoyable. Think about which part of this process you most enjoy and which part you most dread. Work with that. If you're aware of your own process, you can improve it, and that's why I say revision is a life skill. Teachers and students tend to think about this writing process in very different ways. Teachers who use writing to learn understand that the writing process takes time, and that being able to re-see your work, perhaps based on new evidence you find or someone's interpretation of your writing, is not only necessary for deep learning, but it's pretty exciting too. Students, on the other hand, tend to be a bit more impatient and see all this writing process stuff as a lot of work. It's punishment. It means redo. The errors are bad, and they've done it all wrong. Students also tend to either be harder on themselves or they're overconfident in their writing skills. Our job is to help them achieve balance and to learn discipline so that they can have academic success. So to wrap up, conceptualizing the writing process is a lot like this list. You'll see that it's a typical mapping of the process proceeding in an orderly manner from brainstorming to proofreading. But reality shows us that we're constantly revising at every stage, and the more experience we gain as writers, the more we can move back and forth among these various steps. But to do that, we need to be open and flexible to the process, and we need to be diligent in managing our time for the writing assignments. Good writing takes a lot of time, just like most things we practice, but the process does get easier, but only if we practice. It's just like we get really good at procrastination too, because we practice that. So as you're helping students through this writing process, really emphasize the time management part of it. Hope you enjoyed this presentation.